In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a Lego claw machine. This is the same working Lego claw machine as my last video. So, with the Lego claw machine tutorial, I'm going to show you how to build, program, and use the machine. So, let's begin. Starting out, I'm using some 2 by whatever length bricks here, and we're going to do not a complete layer around, but almost. We're going to leave a 12 by 14 opening on the bottom left corner here, and then on the right side, we're going to leave a 10 stud wide opening there. Now that we have that first layer of bricks done, we can add in the panels. I'm using these black panels and clear ones. The clear ones are going to go along the front, so that way you can see through the machine. And then I'm using the black ones along the sides and back. That way I don't have to use bricks. If you don't have those, you can absolutely just build up the walls using normal bricks. So now there's 7 layers of walls here. And just a note, this is how I'm doing mine. I have glass here and then the black panels just to match that glass design there. And then I have pillars here. Those would be structural supports for when we have the carriage over top. So I'm gonna have a pillar here, here, here. This wall will act as a pillar there. And then I'm gonna have a pillar here. A pillar here, and a pillar there. And then I'm having that go down like that, just as a detail to the design. There's no need for that. You can make this wall too thick if you want. I'm just adding more space. Next up, we're gonna use these pillars. These are 30 2x2 blocks stacked vertically. We're gonna attach one there, one here, one here, one back here, and one there. And then we're gonna build this wall up, and this 2x4 wall up. So currently we have 30 studs of walls. Now we can work on this 12 stud section and then this section here. This is where all the controls are going to go, so we can't just build simple walls up there. So up next, let's build the coin system. Start with 8 2x2 bricks, and then 7 2x2 bricks, which can be any color, and that is 5 studs from this edge. Then a 2x6 brick, a 2x2 brick, another 2x2 brick on that side. Next, 2 2x3 bricks, and then a 1x4 with studs on the front. Now we'll take a 1x4 and a 1x3, 1x4 over here, then a 2x6, a 1x6, and a 2x6. And off this last brick, we're going to have a 1x8 and a 1x4 stacked. Center that. Then 2x3 and 2x3. Then 2x4 and 2x4. Then 2x8 and one more 2x8. Now a 2x2 and a 2x4 and the same thing on that other side. Now we need to build this. Beginning with the 7 stud long axle, place a 5 stud long Technic lift arm that's only half thick, 1 stud away from the end. Then take a 5 stud long axle and we're going to make this. That is just another one of those half lift arms, and then a full lift arm, and 2 more half lift arms. But these 2 are connected at the end with a Technic pin, which also connects to that. Then we're going to put the 5-stud axle through that side and top it off with that. Now connect these together at the ends and connect this on this side with another 5-stud long lift arm that's half thick. Now we need to use this tile as a holder on that side, so we're going to build that. Taking a 2-stud lift arm with the Technic axle hole, place a stud pin inside of it, and the same thing over here, but with one with the axle hole perpendicular. So pin, and then we're going to take a 2-stud long axle, and then we're going to slide that to the other side actually, and then we're going to add a perpendicular Technic axle connector. And that one is going to go on this side, and this is going to go on this side. Now we can attach our tile. Now we have to align the spacing. So we want to make sure over here we have 1 stud, and then let's make sure that's even. Then over here there should be a gap, but more importantly we need to space these apart properly. So first off, we need to push this axle all the way through. With that axle now flush, and then we need to push this back, we now have this from the side. So if we space these out just a little more, and let's match this one. Notice this is centered in that 2-axle space, and that gap is matched over there. Now we can look at it that if we put a quarter on here, it can slide across. But a nickel cannot, it will fall. And if we put it from this side, we need to make sure that that can't fall down this side if it's lined up with that. So mine barely makes it, but could easily fall. So let's just make sure that this is pushed just a little bit more. So it might be at an angle like a V, upside down. Now, if we put our finger there, it can easily slide from aligned with either edge. Now let's take out 2 1x1 bricks, attaching this one there and this one there, and put this inside of them. On this side, we're going to take 2 1x6 bricks to act as a wall so that coin doesn't fall off. And then on this side, we just need 1x4 bricks just to keep that against the wall there. Now we're going to make this wall another layer high with a 1x4 and a 1x2, and over here we just need a 1x4. Then with a 1x3 and a 1x8 brick, we can make that go up 1 layer higher. And over here we can do another 1x4 and 1x2 combination with a 1x4. Then we're going to attach a 2x2 there, which is just held on by that stud. So we're going to support it with a 1x8 brick. Then a 2x2 there. Over here, we're going to bring in that other 2x2 brick and that 2x8 brick. So with those sides matched, we can now attach this sensor here. Starting off with your LEGO EV3 color sensor, we're going to attach a 2-stud long axle right there. Now we're going to take a perpendicular axle connector and a 3-stud long axle and connect those together. Then we can see that when we position it like this and attach this here, we now have it at a perpendicular angle. So to match the angle of this, we need to build this curved piece. So with this number 3 angled bracket, we're going to attach it onto our axle there. Then we're going to take a pin and a Technic brick. And then a 2-stud long axle to that connection point. And then another perpendicular connector, a Technic pin with axle and pin, and then another brick. Now we can attach this right here. Here, we're ensuring that that color sensor is over top of this black piece so it can detect the difference between the black piece and the coin. So it should be spaced back 1 stud and this side should have one stud hanging off. Now we're going to take a 2x3 and a 2x2, and over here a 2x2. We're going to take a 2x8 and connect on a 1x4, one stud away here, and that's going to go like this right there. Now we just need to fill in that top row, and we're going to support these pieces with a 2x8. So you can use whatever bricks from here. I'm using a 2x4 and then two 2x3s, and we already have that 2x2 there. With that all in place, now we can continue the black wall up to there. So now it's time to connect the EV3 brick. Notice that over here, I connected on a couple layers and two 2x2 bricks and a 2x10 brick, which were connected with a 2 stud gap there. And then I have 4 layers past that, which connect on like so, to build 2 of these mirrored, one red and one black. So, starting off, we're going to use a 1x2 brick, a 1x2 brick with a center technical, and another one of those. And then 2 1x6 plates, a 1x4 brick, another one of those Technic bricks, and another 1x6 plate. Then 2 1x6 bricks, a 1x4 brick, the Technic brick, and then a 1x2 brick, and 2 more Technic bricks. And these should be separated by 2 1x6 plates. And then 1x6 plate and a 1x6 brick. Now, in each one of these, attach a Technic and axle pin. And now, 2 half-thick lift arms that are angled at the 90-degree with 3 and 3s are going to be attached onto the top and bottom. Then we're going to mirror that in red, and then we're going to attach the half pins into the EV3 brick and attach these to the sides of it. Now take your EV3 brick and 5 1x6 bricks, and then take this cable and attach it in the port 1 and in your color sensor. So now we can place this upon those bricks. And it should be 1 brick away from the top of this here, which again is, for mine, is 30 bricks off of our initial 7 brick frame. So from the front side it looks like this, and now I'm going to add a stack of 2x4 bricks here and 2x2 bricks there. So now with 2 layers of bricks here, and then 10 layers here of 2x4s and 2x2s, we can now use 8 of these slopes attached to a 1x8 plate with another 1x8 on top, and then some plates underneath. Optionally, we can add a wall here for support. So now it's time to build our gantry system and the claw. Starting off, we need to build this frame. Here we have 12 studs, and across we have 44 studs. So building this frame, we're going to start out with just the 2x4s. So stacking 5 of these in a pyramid here, we can then add on more of them. On the bottom here, I'm using 1x4s just because I didn't have enough of the 2x4s. So these are going to click on like so. And if you're using 1x4s, let's have these go towards the center here. And then we can continue this process by adding a bottom one, and then a top one, and then a bottom one, and then a top one. Continue that out to here, to where you've reached a total from this edge to this edge of 44 studs. Now let's take another one of these pyramids with the 3 2x4s and 2 2x4s on top, and we're going to click that underneath right here. We're starting out with a 2x4 and in my case a 1x4 or 2x4s, and clicking that there. And then we're just going to continue that all the way to the other side to where that clicks on top, and this also clicks on top. So now we have the 12x44 frame with the inside being 8x40. So now we're going to build this up with some bricks, starting out with a 1x6, followed up with either 1x8s or 1x4s. And as you can see, it's breaking because it's not strong, and thus we're using these pieces. Now that we have these two 44 stud long rails that are 1 stud wide, we're going to add on these 2x6 and 2x4 bricks to each side, so that way we have support in that direction. So now let's add 2 more layers, making sure that we're interlocking our bricks to make it strong. But over here, we need to leave space, a 2 stud section there, and then we're going to leave this wall side open here. So our cable is going to go through our 2 stud thick gap, and then it can be wrapped around that way. So now let's double check everything's looking good here. We have 2 layers of plates here interlocked, and I'm using 1x4s, so they're on the closer side here. And then we have 3 layers of bricks, all interlocked, and we have 2 studs thick on the sides and 1 stud thick on the longer sides. And on the inside, we have our plates sticking through for the railing that our gear racks will go on. And then on our 3rd layer of bricks here, we have that 2 stud gap, which is 3 studs away from our top right corner. And then we have this 5 stud gap, that way we can wrap our cord around. So now above this wall, we're going to use 2 1x3 bricks. And now let's add some bricks over here. I'm going to use a 2x3 and a 2x4, and then a 2x3 and a 2x4. We're going to stack those like that so they're interlocked, and that's going to go on this wall. Over here, we just need to build up the wall 2 more layers, so we just need 2x12s. I'm using a 2x10, a 2x2, and then a 2x4 and a 2x8. And finally, let's build this up 1 more, but I'm going to flip this around so my 2x4 is facing the center. That way I can place a 2x4 here, which interlocks the bricks better. And now, with the 2x8, we have this covered up with a total layer of 6 bricks. And over here, we need to add 1 more layer. So I'm using a 2x8 and a 2x4 as well. Now, let's take 3 1x2 Technic bricks with 2 Technicals and 1 Technic pin. We're going to connect these on the left side and connect 2 bricks together. And we're going to put this on our bottom left corner here. And then let's take this one and put it 2 studs away from that top corner. Now we can follow that up with the 1x2 behind it, and then the 2x2. And now we just need 6 studs of blocks. Now let's expand that 1 more layer. And then let's expand that 1 more final layer. And above that, I'm using 2 2x4 plates just to add a little more strength. So if we look on this side, we have 6 layers of blocks, and then our Technic bricks, and then 2 more layers of blocks. And we're making sure that pin is on the farthest side, so that way we can run an axle through here. Flipping it around, we're going to do sort of the same thing on this side, but attaching a motor. So now, let's kind of start out with the same thing, but this time we have 4 of these Technic bricks, but still only 1 pin. And it's going to go on that left side. Click 2 of those together, like so. And it's going to go right there again. And then let's take our other 2, and we're going to put them right there, making sure it's on this side of that brick. Now we're going to take this Technic piece, which if you don't have, you can swap out for either 2 Technic pins or 2 Technic pins with the 1x3 between it for extra security. So I'm going to take mine and put it right here. And now I'm going to take a large EV3 motor and attach it to those 2 pins. So here we can see that we have an open hole there and there. And now let's take a 2x6 and attach it here. And then let's build up this wall. Building up this wall, I'm using a 2x4, then a 1x2, and a 1x8. And then finally, a 1x4, a 1x6, and a 1x8. Topped off with a 2x6 and a 1x6 plate. Now, let's put this side facing us, and we're going to stack 3 1x8 bricks, or you could use 1x4s. And this is going to go centered. Now we're going to take a 16-tooth gear and attach a 7 stud long axle to the end of it. And then we're going to put that through the motor, and that's going through our open hole there. Now we can take an axle connector and an 8 stud axle and another axle connector, and then another 8 stud axle and another Technic brick here, which is going to go right there. Then we can take another axle connector and another 8 stud long axle, then another Technic brick. And now we can lock these down with a 1x6 between them, and then let's put some plates on top. I'm using a 1x4 and another 1x4, which could be subbed out for 2x4s. Now let's have another connector, another 1x8, and one more connector. Now, like we did on the other side, let's use our 16-tooth gear and a 7 stud long axle and put it through that Technic hole all the way through into that connector. So now we have a gear just on the outside of both sides, and when we spin this one, it spins that other one. So then when that motor spins, it spins both. Now I'm going to use 2 16-tooth gears that have the pinhole and 2 frictionless pins. And if you don't have those, we can just use our same gears and attach it to a frictionless axle and pin Technic pin. But since I do, I'm going to use these and put a pin in each one. And they're getting attached to this brick. So we're going to put this one here and this one here. So now they can freely spin. Or if you're using the other one, it would attach in the same spot and can still freely spin. So this claw uses 2 motors, one to go side to side, and then this motor controls it going up and down and opening and closing through the use of these 2 strings, which are spinning offset. So if we look at the claw here, when I hold it by this string, it closes, and when I hold it by this string, it opens. And up here, that controls that. So while this is the most complex part of the tutorial, I'm going to do my best to make it simple. Let's start off with up here. So for now, I'm going to detach my strings. Another quick note, in this tutorial, I'm going to be using some specific Technic parts. If you don't have them, try swapping it out with something you do, and test to see if it works. So let's begin. By disconnecting a couple of axles and pins, now we have this broken up into two parts. So let's start with the more complex one. So I'm going to be disconnecting pieces from here and building it here. So make sure we're just building here. Let's take our motor here, and we're going to insert a 5 stud long axle there, but do not push it all the way through. And then a 6 stud axle with a full bushing there. So let's take these three pieces, a 3 stud Technic pin, 2 lift arms. This one has an axle hole on the bottom, where this one is a 3 and 5 arm. And let's take that there, and we're going to put our lift arm like so, and it's facing down with our technical down. Now we're going to take this, put that through its corner, and then push that all the way through. So now we need to build this part. Starting out, take another L-beam, and we're going to put that pin there, and then a 3 stud pin in the center of the back of it there. Now let's take a 5 stud long axle, put it through its last hole. Then we're going to put a 3 long half lift arm and a 2 long half lift arm. And those go like so. So now let's take a Technic frame and add another lift arm. Now we're going to take 2 of these, and we're going to attach these pins to the side of them. And then we're going to click them in the center hole here and flip them up, then attach a 7 stud long axle through them like so. Now we can take this and attach it to the bottom hole and make sure those are lined up through that hole. Now we're going to take an 8 stud long axle with a stopper and a 4 stud long axle with a stopper and put them through this hole. Then we're going to set that on its back, and we're going to take another of the L lift arms, putting a Technic pin there, and that's going to go into that hole. So we're going to set it down like so, and now it's clicked in right there, and we have our axles going through. And now gears go on both of these axles, right here and right here. So now let's attach a 16-tooth gear onto here. So with that gear on, we're going to put this through this hole here. So this is like so, and we're going to take a 5 stud long axle with a stopper, if you have them with a stopper, and that's going to go all the way through, locking this in. So now we need to add the gears that go here and here. So we're going to take the 4 stud long axle here and slide in a gear like so. So that's going between those all the way through to our L lift arm. That's sticking out 1 stud there. And then we're going to take a 5 stud through the frame, through the L lift arm, through another 16-tooth gear, through another L lift arm, and sticking out right there. And right there is where we add our first gear that kind of delays the spinning of the second spool. So we're going to take one of these and attach a pin, and then we're going to make sure that the axle holes are lined up. So right here I have that gap facing vertically, so we're going to take this other one with it facing vertically and then connect it all the way through. So that way we have an open hole that the axle can go through. And this is a ballpoint pin here, not a pen, a pin. So that's going to go on the end of our 5 stud long axle with the stopper there. So now that motor will carry that power through the gears to that and all the way down to this axle. Now let's take another L lift arm, this one's 4 and then 2, and it's going to go on this side here. We're going to have another one over here, but we're going to wait until we attach our large motor up top. So for now, we're going to set that aside. Now let's build this section. It has another delaying mechanism, and then these are connected to each other so they don't delay, but they do carry over that power to the second delayer. And then another key point is that this black here has a friction pin, so that way it adds friction to that one spinning. Starting out, we're going to take a 7 stud long Technic lift arm, and we're going to take this, which is a Technic pin, and then a Texel hole. So we're going to put that on our second one there. Now let's take a Technic pin on the very center backside of that. Set that right there for a second, and let's make this frame. For our frame, we're going to take a 7 stud long axle with a stopper, and then we're going to take another one of these Technic pieces with the blue pin, which has axle and pin, and that's going to go on there and click right there. Now on the back side, a 2 pin and a 3 pin that goes through. So with that, we're going to take what we built here and attach it here to where we have this pin facing up and this facing down, so that hole and this hole are on the same level. So now let's take this, flip it to that side, and we're going to take a 1x5 lift arm and put 2 4 stud long axles with stoppers. And then that's going to attach there. So these are stuck there. Let's take another one of these, attach it to the top here. Now we're going to take 2 sets of the half 2 long lift arms going here and over here. On this one, we're going to take a 2 stud long axle, and on this one, a 3 stud long axle, which is going to go through here. And now we're going to make 2 of these, which is the Technic piece, frictionless pin with the axle so it can freely spin, and then a 3 stud axle connector with the hole in it, which we'll tie our string to. So let's make 2 of those and attach them in the opposing directions. Now, like we previously did, we're going to make 3 sets of these where we have our 2 wheels in the same directions, that way we can put a pin through, which has a ball point on the end of it. And let's verify that an axle could go through this. This one it could not, because that line is not matched up. So remove that, and let's rotate it to where these are going to match up. Add in another pin, and looks good. So make 3 of those, and with one of them attach a 3 stud long axle. Now we're going to put that through the center hole there and attach the other one to the other side. It does not matter if your pins line up or not, as they work independently. Now let's take a 5 stud long lift arm and this pin, which is 2 axle holes, but it has friction on it. That is very important. Now let's take our gear, attach it there, and again, it has friction when it spins. So let's take this in a 1x4 axle with a stopper on it, and then we're going to attach a gear and attach this facing that way. Like so. And then we're going to take our last set of discs and it's going to attach like so. Now when we spin this, it should, if we hold this axle, or if we hold this beam like that, we should be able to spin it, but it should have friction. And then when we spin the other way, it shouldn't spin until those make contact, then it should spin with friction. So now let's take a 5 stud long Technic beam with a pin there and a pin here. And then we're going to take this piece, which is a 3 Technic beam, but it has a little axle hole there, and we attach it like so. Now this is going to go on like that, but before we do that, we actually need to disconnect that a little bit, attach this piece on there, and then that axle can go through. Then we can attach this, going this way. And then we're gonna have another one of these. And then let's take out a 4 stud long axle with a stopper and another one of these gears, attaching it there. And that's gonna go all the way through into our spool. So now, when this spins, it spins the spool. And when we go back the other way, it has a delay and then spins it. Then has that delay, then spins it the other way. And now let's connect these together. So that hole there goes with this long axle, and then this connects to our spool. So let's hold this like that, and then our spool's face down, and then we can find that going through there and that going into there, like so. So now our 2 spools are attached to the motor, and this one has a delay due to these pieces. Let's set that right there for now. With all that built, let's build this, which contains the strings so that way they don't get tangled as easily. Because when your strings get tangled, the claw doesn't open and close as well. So that's what we're trying to avoid. Let's begin by flipping this over. And then we actually want this 3 stud long axle right here to be pushed all the way through this way, not sticking up there like I originally had it. So I'm just gonna put mine right back together by lining all those up. There we go. And now we have this connection point, and that connection point, which we can attach this to. But instead of that black pin, I'm gonna swap it out for one that we can put through there and then push in. So that way we don't have to force it onto there. So let's begin. Starting off, we're gonna start with this yellow piece, and then we're going to attach a 5 stud long axle to it. Now let's take another set of 2 of our half thick, 2 long lift arms. And then, now let's take an 8 stud long axle, and first we're going to put a wheel on it. This is a wheel without a tire, and when it's next to an axle, it makes a perfect gap for our strings where the string can't really get out of it. But it keeps it loose enough to where it can easily slide across it. So now we're going to attach that axle there, push it all the way there. Now we're going to take this, slide it all the way there. You could also use a set of another 2 of those, but I didn't have enough and I wanted to keep it a little more simple. Let's take an axle connector now, and then over here we are going to take a bushing and a perpendicular axle connector, so it slides on that way and then faces this way so we can attach it there. Now let's take another one of those, and then another wheel. So to get this on, we're going to take this apart one last time, or you could just try to force that on there. But doing that, mine came apart anyways. So put that there, and then we're going to slide this axle all the way through into our axle connector. Now we can put this back together, remembering that that goes in there, and this goes in here. And then we're going to put that pin and make sure there's a lining up, or else when you're pushing together, it might not. And then another quick note, make sure that this is going into our 3 stud long axle like that. Okay, so with that all lined up, we can now take our pin and slide it there to lock it in place. Use a quick glance to make sure we're doing everything right so far. Alright, so that was a lot, and we now get to move on to a much simpler build. So let's start with our large motor and insert a 6 stud long axle there, and let's take this piece, put it there, then we can fully insert that, but we're going to leave enough spacing for there's 1 stud on this side and 2 on that side, which should be about there. And note that this piece is locked in because the axle is going through the axle hole there. Now we're going to take this piece and attach a pin there. And then we're going to take a 5 stud long lift arm there. And this is going to go on there, which we can verify by taking this. And we should be able to see that that would connect there. And that axle would run through there. So we're all good. So now let's take this piece and attach 2 pins there and that other one there. And now let's take an L lift arm attached in the center of the 5 section here. Then we're going to take one of these pins and attach it right there. Let's take a 2 and 4 lift arm here, and we're going to attach a pin right there. Now we're going to take this lift arm, adding this pin 2 away from here. So this lift arm is 13 long and 2 from this side. Now we're going to take a 3 pin that has no friction and slide it there, and a 16 tooth gear there, which can freely spin. Let's attach those together like so. And then take a 16 tooth gear and a 4 stud long axle, and we're going to put it through that hole right there. Next we're going to take an axle connector, and then a 6 stud long axle right here. So now this is going to attach onto our motor on this side. But before we fully connect that, we need to put this piece right there, and we can fully slide that in now. And note that that hits right there, and this fell out, so we're going to reattach that real quick. Now we can flip that facing this way. It's not going to hold like that, but that's what the position will be when we attach it. Now we can take a 5 stud long lift arm, attaching 2 pins there and there, and that will attach right there. But before we do that, we need to take one of these pins, which has the Technic pin on that side, and then the double Technic axle there. I'm going to take one of these pieces and have it facing up. Now we can slide that into here. And note that that pin went all the way through this piece. Now I'm going to take another frictionless pin and 16 tooth gear so this can freely spin. Now we can combine the 2 things we built, and it's going to connect in a few places. So I just tried to put those together and there was a slight error. We need to take this piece off, switch around these pins to the other side. We have to take that gear off real quick for space. Then we can attach it like that. So it's on the side on the left. So I had one more error, unfortunately. So this piece we corrected, but this one needs to just be shifted over 1 stud. So we're going to pop it out like so, and just put it in the center of that beam. Now let's attach this onto here, and there are several connection points. This axle hole goes on that axle, and then these 2 pins go into the motor. This pin goes in that free hole, and that pin goes in this hole. Those 2 pins go there. So when you're putting this on, I would highly suggest pulling the motor slightly away so that way we can focus on those pins last. But let's make sure that we line that up there, this here, and then under here we can see that that's kind of at an angle. We gotta kind of lift up, and then let's pull this motor away and wiggle those pieces in there. Then make sure that motor is right there. Okay, so now we can again pull this motor apart and finally pop that in. So eventually I got mine in place. Another key is to make sure that that axle is going through that piece, which you can take off when trying to put those together if needed. So we have that axle through there, this one through here with that gear still, that connection point, this here is sitting flush connected there, have that black axle going all the way through here connected to that red piece here. So with everything sitting flush, we can now insert this 5-stud long axle all the way through, and to make sure it's flush, we can take a brick and push it against there. Now let's take our last gear and put it here. So when this motor spins, it spins that gear and that gear. And then when this motor spins, it spins these delayers, which delays this coil from spinning, but it also goes straight to this one. To test to make sure this works, we're going to spin this gear, and this one should be able to spin, but that one shouldn't spin until it makes contact over there. So there we go, now it's making contact. If I continue to spin it, it would push on that and try and spin that motor. And we can spin it back quite a bit until it makes contact over there. So our strings are going to attach here and go all the way down and through there to our claw. So let's set that aside and build the claw. So let's take this complete L, which has this angled portion here. That's going to act as the claw that'll be able to pick something up. We're going to take a 3-stud long axle going on the back side here. And then let's take 2 pins on the back side as well. And this piece, which is going to prevent it from going too far. Now we're going to take this, which has an axle hole on this side here. And then let's take an L lift arm here. And we're going to attach this piece just for weight, which surprisingly actually does help. Now let's take a 3-stud long frictionless pin, attaching it here, and a 5-stud long Technic lift arm. And then lastly, we're going to attach this frictionless pin right here. So when we hold this, we can see that when we push up and down on this, it opens and closes that claw. So now let's put that to the side, and we're going to build this. We're going to start out with this unique piece. It has a pinhole to the center, and then axle holes on all 3 sides. If you don't have this, because we're going to need 2, you definitely need 1, but you can swap it out for the one which has the axles sticking out. But you have to replace a couple pieces using axle connectors, and then an axle connector instead of our pin here. Now we're going to use this pin and attach a Technic spacer, and that's going to go on the top there. Now we're going to take 3 3-stud long axles and attach 1 to each side, like that. Now we can attach each claw, which we built 3 of, to its black connection point right there. Now when we hold it by the center here, it stays closed, but we're going to fix that as it should be open with the weights we'll add. So now we're going to start off with the same thing, but this time using 4-stud long axles. And then we're going to take a piece of string that needs to be at least 50 studs long, but I would recommend upwards towards 60 or 70. So now we're going to thread that through this bushing, going through the side of it, and then out the axle hole of it. So when we pull it, it looks like that. Now we're going to pull that to where there's only a little bit sticking out, and then we're going to put it through like here, so it whoops. And then we're going to push this all the way through to the back. And don't pull too hard, but you should make sure that your string's not going to go anywhere. Now we're going to take some Lego tires. These are going to act as weights. So I'm using a large one, then a small one. And we got to make sure it's even on each side, or at least roughly even. And for my string, I'm going to have it go through this tire, so that way it's coming out the other side, so it's more of a direct path out. So with all my tires on, which act as weights, we're going to use these perpendicular axle connectors. So we attach that on, and we attach them on to each side here. With those not on, we're going to make sure that, I'm going to hold my tires here, we're going to make sure that those axles are going this way. Now, each one of the pins here are going to connect onto those. And it's going to be on the inside here, So we're gonna match up the brown piece there with the brown piece here. So it should look like that. Then we're gonna make sure our string's going up. So I'm gonna have it fold over that way. And then we're gonna connect our last two. So now when we hold it by this, it should close. And then when we push them together, it'll open. Now we're gonna add the axle all the way through and more weight up there so it can close with more power. So we're gonna start with this 90-degree angled axle connector, and we're gonna tie a string around it here. Or you can wait to do that so that way it doesn't fall off, but mine's already tied, so I'm gonna leave it. Now a 3-stud long axle with a stopper, or in my case a stud on the stopper. And then we're gonna take a 2-stud long axle here. And then we're going to take one of these perpendicular axle connectors, then a bushing, then another 2-stud long axle on the end of it, and then another Technic piece there. So now we're going to build this, which acts as a weight. Inside of here, we pop off the top disc and take the axle out. We can see it's filled with coins, and those coins weigh it down. So to build this, we're going to take 1/2 of these. And then for me, I'm using a dime, then a penny, then 3/4, and that's on each side. That way we can fit the maximum amount of weight on each one. If you don't have these specific panels, you can use any other thing. You can use other weights, you can just tape the weights to the axle, you can just tape coins, anything that's gonna weigh this axle down and can be connected to the axle. So now I'm gonna connect it onto this plate, and notice that that axle can go all the way through here. So now over here, I'm gonna go dime, penny, and quarters. And then I'm gonna put one more quarter. It's gonna kind of lay like that, but we're just gonna put it on this side here. Now with that axle there, we need to then attach these two together, which you can either go fast or kind of balance it. So I'm gonna go like that. And it doesn't want to stay closed. So we're gonna add another plate on top of here and push those together. Now we're gonna attach our axle here and then push that all the way down to where it's between the studs there. So it's on there. Now let's take a 1/2 bushing and push it all the way up to the top there to hold that on. Something I didn't mention is that this is a 12-stud long axle. Now we're gonna take this, go through that piece, and attach it onto that connector. So now we're gonna take this string, and I have my claw stand. Take this string, and then it's gonna go up through this piece and out. So now let's test our claw, making sure that the weights are enough to be able to open and close it with enough snap. So we're gonna pull from this string, and it's gonna close. Then we're gonna put all that weight on this string, and it's gonna open. And now, as you can see, my string's spun. So it still works, but not as well. That's something we're trying to avoid. So if I unspin those and set that right there, I can now take a 3-stud long lift arm and put the string through each one of its further holes. So we're gonna take the string, thread it through there, pull that all the way through. Then we're gonna take this one, thread it through there, and pull that all the way through. While that does not keep it from spinning, it helps a little bit. So we're gonna pull this to where it's not spun. And now we can see it works. And all I'm doing here is switching which string has the weight of the claw. We're gonna need 2 of these Technic and stud pins, and they're gonna go in the holes of those. So starting out, we're gonna take the string, which goes from down here up and through, and that one is gonna go on this spool, the one that does not have these gears over here. So we're going to thread it through here. And again, it can't go out of that gear, so make sure it's between there. Can't go out of that wheel, so make sure it's between there. I'm going to push that down, take the string here, and then you're going to have it go through our piece there. So it should look like this. Now we're going to eliminate how much goes through there, like pulling that. Now take a pin. And just like that, now if we pull this delicately, it can't come out. If we pull hard enough, it definitely can. So what we're going to do is temporarily slide that gear out of place and spool this just a little bit this way. Just about 1 to 2 rotations or so. And then sliding that gear back in locks this one in place. And now we gotta make sure that we did the string right. So it should be coming in this way, then go up and around. Like so. So when this spins to pull it up, it's spinning counterclockwise, and clockwise would be letting out the string. Now, let's take our other string and we're going to make sure it's not tangled or anything, so it's fully separate. And then over here, we're going to disconnect this piece from that axle, like so. And now we can take out that gear entirely. For stability, I'm just going to take an axle long enough to where I can just take it out in a second here and attach it there so I can spin this. Now we're going to do the same thing, attaching the string through the wheel here. So the string is going to go once again through the wheel. And then after that, we're going to grab it. And then it's going to go through this piece. Now we're going to take this pin and insert it right here. Now let's add just a little bit of tension and spool it by turning this clockwise. So from this side, it's turning counterclockwise. The reason I'm spooling this one so much is because my string is much longer on this side than the other one is. So we're going to spool that until it's just about the same distance for each string. So I actually need to unspool that to about there. Now let's take this out, put our gear back on, and pop that back on there. Now is the difficult part. We need to see if these strings are the right lengths. So to do this, I'm going to hold this up here. And right now we can see it's open. When it's open, that means that this string has slack in it and this one has all the weight. And now I'm going to spin this gear until it won't let me spin it anymore. And we're going to see if it's closed. Mine's closed. So now we need to have a good balance of slack. Right now we can see this has way more slack than this one. When we spin this, we can see this one has, it has some slack, and well, this one's tight. So we're going to take this and add just a little bit more slack here. Then put that back. So now looking at it, we lay this down so you can see. When I spin the gear all the way, the one direction, you can see that lifting up, it's closed, and it has quite a bit of slack on one of the strings while the other one's tight. Now let's spin this gear the other way until it has tension like that. And we'll lift it up, and we can see that it's open. It's not opening too well right now because our strings are tangled, but now it's open. If yours isn't opening or isn't closing, you gotta make sure that the one string has tension, and then when you spin this gear, then that tension gets transferred to the other cable. So now we can put this in the claw machine. So your claw machine is not quite yet to this point. Right here, what I'm doing is adding 7 layers of walls here. I initially only had 2, but we actually need to add an extra 5 here. And I'm also lifting up the EV3 brick by 5 layers. So what we're doing here is lifting just the EV3 brick up by 5 layers. Alright, so I raised mine up. I added 5 studs here and 5 studs down here. And then we added 5 layers here and to the red. So now we have a total of 7. On the front side here, we can now see that there is a large gap between the coins and the EV3 brick here. And we have 7 layers. And that's 7 layers of the pillars and the black 2x4 and 2x2 bricks. You also need to make sure that you add that red ring at the bottom there, and make sure we're interlocking our bricks to make sure that all the pillars are connected strongly, so that way nothing falls apart here. So looking at it from the back here, we have this, and then next up I'll show you what those gear racks, tiles, and slopes are. We can now put on our gear racks and the stoppers. So we're going to start out with a 1x2 wedge piece, and then we're going to follow that up with 4 gear racks. If you don't have gear racks, you can swap your gears out for tires and just use tiles. But gear racks make sure that it has enough power to move it against like the cable tension and other things like that. Once those 4 are on, we're going to add 2 1x4 tiles or a 1x8. And then just a cheese slope right there. So now, when it's going all the way this way, that gear is there, can't climb up that piece, so it will just kind of skip there without burning up your motor. And then on the other side, it's going to go to there. And then because that's not able to go up that ramp, it's going to constantly be putting force back that way, so that way it's not skipping, but can then climb back on those tracks. And then we're going to add some walls around and route our cables a little better. And now for the tracks over here. So after you replicate that back here, we're going to do the tracks here, which I already have laid up here, so we're going to make sure we replicate those on both rails. We're starting out with another one of those wedge pieces, and it's going to go all the way against the wall there. And then we can add our 6 gear racks. And then we can add 6 more gear racks. And then a 1x6 tile, a 1x4 tile, then a 1x1 tile, and finally another cheese slope. Now we should have 2 empty studs right back there. So we're going to stack 2 1x2 bricks and place those there. Now, after replicating that on that side, we can set it down like so. Now, let's connect our cables. So, for our cables, I made a slight mistake here. This wall, this 1x3 wall, actually should be on the back side here. So, to fix that, we're just going to shatter the whole thing. So when trying to route these cables, I realized I made a mistake. And after dropping the whole carriage, I'm now able to fix that. So we want to take out this wall, and then this 1x2 is going to have to get switched out with a 1x3 here. So we can leave this piece. So let's just use a 1x3, and then we can stack our other 2 1x3s there. Now we have this, so that way the cable can kind of go there but then it gets wrapped around there and doesn't slide on a wall here. So I'm going to put this back down. Now we can take the cable in port C, that's going to be our longest cable, and we're going to thread it through just kind of right there, but it's going to just click into our large motor. So really it's just up here, but when our carriage is moving, we want to make sure that it's under this motor. So kind of like that. And then our cable B can just connect right to this large motor. And lastly, cable A, and note that cable A and cable B are both the same size length. That's going to be your second to longest cables. This one's going to go underneath, so it's going to go down here and then connect to your medium motor. So from above, that looks like this. We have this cable going way up here, but we're just tucking that under that motor. This cable goes down here, and then this cable just directly connects. And again, note that this is cable A, this is cable C, and this is cable B. So now over here, I'm going to remove these two pieces so we can see a little better. You want your tall cable here that's going right here, and that's cable B, to be able to have this cable, cable C, in front of it, so that way this one kind of runs behind. So now we're going to remove that piece for now. And then we're going to use either a 2x6, or I'm just using two 1x6s, but we're going to hold cable A and cable C down, and then we're going to attach these onto here. So now we're going to build around that, as it looks like it's interfering with the design, but it's not actually, as these two pieces you can't see when the walls are fully surrounding it. So with a 2x2, another 2x2, and a 1x2, and then a black 1x2 here, we can then just put another layer of bricks over top, and that connects that wall very strongly and keeps our cables down. This cable, cable B, we're going to have it just route on a larger hole up here. Cable B is going to be routed up here through a hole that's way up there. So now let's add 5 more layers of bricks here, using 1 wide bricks here, and then we can stick with either the 2 wide or 1 wide, then 2 wide or 1 wide depending on what your collection allows, as well as 1 by bricks here, and then I'm continuing my pillars, and also the 2 wide bricks there. So while I'm time-lapsing me building up the walls here, I want to just make sure we're on the same page with our claw machines here, because I know a portion of the tutorial was kind of skipped. So where we just routed the cables, I left a 2x4 opening 2 blocks tall there, and then put a layer of bricks on top. And right now, we're just putting a layer of bricks, 5 layers of bricks over everything. And then I'm just continuing my pillars here. And where the machine connects to where the EV3 brick is, I made sure to build that kind of into its wall, for that way it's much stronger. And make sure you did that while you were doing that lower ring of the red bricks. So now that those 5 layers are on, I also have a 2 stud wide hole with a 2 block tall 2 stud wide hole here, where the cable goes through there, and then I have 2 2x6 blocks here. So now when this goes forwards or backwards, it can pull out the cable and then it can wrap around back here. Now let's put 1 layer of red bricks all the way around, making sure that we interlock all the panels or bricks and stuff like that. So with some of the final steps of building the claw machine here, I want to remind you guys that you can always leave a comment down below in case there's any confusion while building with this tutorial. And also notice here that when the corner pillars connect kind of at the 90-degree angles, I'm using some 1x1 bricks and some other 1x1 bricks to make 2x whatever bricks. So that way it's connected securely in both directions. I'm not just using like a 2x4 going one way and stranding the other wall. And now here I'm adding a layer of plates on all the surfaces. So down there I'm actually adding a layer of tiles, and then underneath here I'm adding a layer of plates, and you can also do that on top. That just adds another layer to make sure it's all interlocked, as it kind of wants to shift apart, but having two layers here, the red bricks and then a ring of the red plates, that just makes sure that it's all together. Now let's finish this section here. So I'm using one of these hood pieces with a 1x2 plate on the bottom, and then a 2x4 plate, and then I'm going to take a 2x4 tile, put it right there, and then put this all the way in the back. So that way it has a little slope so the coins can fall out. Now let's detail around here and put a bar here so you know where to put the coins. So for what I'm doing here, we're going to start out with this frame that looks like an H. To begin, we're going to take a 1x4 plate and attach a 1x4 tile, one off from that, and then create 4 of those. Next, take 2 of these, which has 2 and 1, so it's kind of like an L bracket. We're going to take 2 of those and connect them together, with a 1x4 tile. And then let's take a 1x2 plate and put that underneath. Now we can attach our 4 pieces to the 2 open studs on each side of these. Now let's set this aside and build the 2 top and bottoms. For the bottom, we're going to start with a 1x4 brick and then attach 2 of these sloping pieces with little studs on the side. And then a 1x2 plate. And then I'm using this hinge piece as it has this little knob that sticks up, so that way it'll stop the coins from just sliding right out of the machine. Now we're going to use another one of these slopes and attach a 1x2 brick with the studs on the side as well. And then on one of those, we're going to attach this piece right there. That way we can put a display coin or sticker, something like that, behind it. So make 2 of those. But only one needs that piece, as the other one's going to get flipped around like that. To hold that in place, use a 1x2 plate. Now, you can either put on a 1x4 plate, or I'm just using 2 1x2 plates on top here. Now I'm using 4 more of these, or they make a piece that is 4 long, so either one works, and I'm connecting it together with a 1x4 tile. So with that tile on top of those, we can now connect it to the bottom of this, like that. So that stands like that. So now we're going to take this to where the larger side's on the bottom. Then we're going to take a larger piece, attach it to the top, right there, and right there. And now we're going to take this other piece and attach it to the bottoms here. Now we're going to flip that over and use 2 1x4 plates on the back here. 1 and 2. Now we can attach this here by making sure that this is going kind of under there, and this brick attaches to those studs. Like so. So now when coins come out of here, they can get stopped by that piece, and our coins can go through and onto that ramp to get detected. So now let's begin programming. So with your EV3 brick on, now connect it to your computer, iPad, or whatever you're using to program. So upon connecting to your EV3 brick, let's start the program. From a start block, we're going to set a variable. So we're going to have it write logic as false. I'm going to name our variable credit. After selecting OK, we're we can then begin with a loop. And every time the program starts, we want the light to be red and not pulse. After that, we need to detect when the coin is deposited. So we're going to wait for the color sensor to change reflected light intensity, and we'll set that value at 5. So it waits to change by 5. Once you deposit the coin, we want to have the machine then be green, and we'll have that not pulse. And once you deposit a coin, we want to have it write the variable, the logic variable credit, as true. Now we're going to have it wait for you to press the center button. We'll have that be completely pressed or bumped. Then we're going to rewrite that variable now back to false. So this could be a logic variable credit as false. Now let's have that wait 0.25 seconds, just so the claw can settle and stop swinging a bit. Then we're going to have motor A at the speed. For my claw machine, I'm going to have it be set to 20, and for my string length, and for my string's length, it works best at 5.5 rotations. So this 5.5 value is what works best for my machine. You have to test in your own machine what works best, but if you follow the tutorial and you have your claw already set to basically all the way up about a stud to 2 from the wheels is that gray 1x3 piece, then 5.5 rotations works best. Now we're gonna have it wait 1 second, and then I'm gonna copy and paste this right here, and we're just gonna turn that negative so it goes back up. From there, let's have it wait 1 more second here to let it settle, and then we're gonna have our motor C go at the speed. For mine, I'm gonna go 35, and that's gonna go negative 4 rotations. So that's gonna mean that anywhere that the claw is, let's say we have a box here, if it's here, it'll go all the way back to here, and then it'll probably keep spinning a little bit just to make sure that if it was on the very edge, it'd get all the way back. And so we're gonna do the same thing here with motor B, making sure that we have port B selected. I'm gonna go 35 speed, and again for mine is 2.75 rotations. So those two, just recenter your claw over the prize chute. After that, we're gonna have it wait 0.25 seconds, just so it's not too slow. And we're gonna have motor A spin at the speed of 10, so it's a little delicate, 2 rotations, so that way it'll drop your prize. After that, we can just have it wait 0.25 seconds to give it enough time for that prize to fall out. And now we can just copy and paste this block right after that. Right after that, and we're gonna set that at -2 instead of positive. So with that program now done, I'm gonna remove my guiding program here. And now we're gonna go down here, and we need 4 more start blocks. So let's go 1 there, and then we're gonna copy and paste the other 3 after we get this initial program written. Alright, so we're gonna start off with another loop, and then we're gonna have it wait for the button to be pressed in. Do not do bumped, just in. So just 1 here. And this is gonna be our top button, so this is set to 4. Now we're going to take a variable and it's going to read the logic credit, and let's go right into a switch. I'm going to go tab view. This is going to be a logic switch, and then let's drag that to plug that variable into the switch to know if it's true or false. So let's select true, and now we're going to have motor C. It's going to go on at the speed. For mine, I want it at 25. And now we're going to wait for that brick button, and again we're going 4 here, so it's that top one, and we're going to select 0 here. Wait for that to be released, and then after it's released, we're going to just copy and paste this and just swap that to off. So now once you press that button in, it's going to see if you have a credit, and if you do, indicated by the true here, it's then going to turn the motor on until you release a button and turn the motor off. So I'm going to get rid of this, and we're going to copy all that, scroll down just a little bit here, paste that right there. Now we're just going to select 5 instead of 4 for both of these, indicating the bottom button. And because we did that, we need to turn this speed from 25 to -25. And then over here, we're going to do the same thing, but it's a little different because we have to swap motors. So we're going to have this one indicate number 3, our right button, and we're going to set that over here as well. Swap this to motor B on both blocks here. And motor B is going to spin at -25. Now let's copy this, paste it right here, and we're just going to set that to +25 and set these buttons to the left button, number 1 here. So here we can see that these are motor B, this one's positive without left button. These are motor B, this one's negative without right button. And over here, these are motor C, and it is positive without top button, and motor C is negative without bottom button. Now, you don't want to click any of the start buttons because that'll run just that individual program. We're going to go down here, right there, and click on a download and run. And that's going to send the program to your EV3 brick, and it's going to begin it.
So I just started my program, and as you're about to see, those red lights are going to switch to green without me inserting a quarter. So that means our wait block for it to wait for the reflected light intensity to change by 5, that value is not enough. So we're just going to increase that value of 5 up towards 20, or you can go even higher. So if it's detecting a coin, or thinking it's detecting a coin before you actually put one in, just play around with that value, increasing it or decreasing it if it's not detecting a coin until you find that sweet spot. Mine seemed to be way past the 5. I think it was 20 to 40, something like that.
If I angle this down, we can see that when I insert a nickel, it falls out. But when I insert a quarter, it goes through and switches to green. So now I can use the brick buttons here to move my claw. So if I decide to drop it somewhere back there, I can then select the center button here, and the claw's going to open while it goes down. Then it's going to hit the ground, open just a little more, and now it's going to get picked up while it closes. Now it's going to recenter. And as you can see in here, it goes a little too far because it's accounting for if it was at the bottom or if it was at the far corner there. And it went down, opened to drop our prize if we would have won, and then back up. Now it's back to red, and as you can see, we can't use any of the buttons. That is until we insert a quarter. So luckily with these two blocks here, we were able to fix that. So I have this one set to 2 and 0 and this one set to 2 and 1. So now it's waiting for it to not be pressed, then it waits for it to be pressed in, then it waits for it to be, this is bumped, but it's basically pressed in then pressed out. So that just makes sure that it doesn't skip any of those in the program. And now it should work. And note here that I switched that to 10. You can also switch that even higher if it's still acting like it already had a coin put inside, but it did not. So if wanted, you could also have your machine display something on the screen, or if you know how to work with variables a little better, I wanted to keep the program kind of simple, but you can make it have a timer where it would go down if you didn't press the button in time. So let's give it a final test here. So I'm gonna insert the coin. Now it's green, and I'm gonna move the claw to pick up that tire. A key to this is that you kind of have to move it a little further back than the prize actually is. So while I didn't pick up the tire this time, that's kind of the weight capacity that the claw can pick up. Unless you swap out the claw with a motorized claw, but that kind of defeats the purpose, as I try to keep the machine only to 3 motors, so that way it's more accessible to you guys, since the EV3 kit only comes with 3 to start with. So what I recommend is light things like bracelets or paper items work really well. And you can also attach rubber pieces to the end of the claw, so that way it can grip things a little better. In my video before this, I showed a couple rounds of the claw machine, including one where I wanted bracelet out of the machine, and all the other stuff that's in the machine. While it can't pick up all that stuff, I do think that they are pretty good recommendations for about what it could pick up, especially things like the bracelet, the plastic frisbees, stuff like that. So I highly encourage you guys go check out that video if you haven't already. And once again, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything like that, leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. Finally, I ask all of you guys who made it this far in the video to hit that subscribe button, as it's always free and it just shows me that you guys enjoy this type of content and that you appreciate all the hard work that went into making this tutorial. And I'll see you guys in the next video.